Welcome back to Tiny Blue Games. My name, of course, is Csaw or Chris, and today we are talking about Final Fantasy XIV in 2020. We are looking at the Praetorium Dungeon. Let's do this. It's going to be really exciting. I've been excited to make this video for quite some time. The most recent dungeon we did was the lead up to this, and this is kind of the conclusion. It is an even longer video, I believe. It's a longer dungeon for sure. I don't know how much of it I'm going to cut out, depending on just not much happening or if I don't have anything to say. But we're going to go through it, do the full recording, and see what we get. We are here with Sid and our group of fellow comrades. I talked in the last video about how we didn't see a lot of our friends in cutscenes. In this video, we do. In this dungeon, we do see people in cutscenes. We see our group right here, so I guess I just had to go one dungeon further to resolve my problem. It is a little bit weirder, given this, because originally I kind of thought it was maybe a technology thing, but as it turns out, it was just a stylistic choice, and well, there you go. But yeah, so it's another 8-man dungeon. It feels very much like a small raid. The line is continuously getting blurred for me between raids and dungeons, but that's kind of the fun of it, exploring how games do things differently. And I've certainly enjoyed them. It was definitely a bit of an easier dungeon once again, where we felt very comfortable just walking through various rooms. I find it kind of confusing sometimes though, because you have to be really watching for where people click on things, where people disappear. You can easily get lost, and that definitely happens, and it's something that we will look into in a second. So I'm once again healing this dungeon on my scholar. It's probably the role that I've played the most now, and I even quest as a scholar fairly frequently. I haven't found it to be much slower, which is pretty rare when it comes to MMOs. I tend to, if you are going to play a healer or a tank, I'll switch back to a DPS role for questing because it's usually extremely tedious. The issue, I think, well, both issue and reason why this is not a big issue in Final Fantasy XIV is that up to this point, a lot of the quests have been kind of walking and talking to people. There are some times that you have to kill people, but it's not enough to really warrant me switching to a different role, which is a little bit strange, but it's what it is. Anyways, I've really enjoyed the healing. I guess long and short of it, I've enjoyed the healing. I'm excited to continue on as the scholar into the next bit of content. I might switch it up eventually just to try and, keep things fresh. I do intend to still go at a slower pace and enjoy the content of the expansions, as well as the content between this expansion and the expansion afterwards. I know that some people wish I'd go a little bit faster, but it's been a very comfortable way for me to get a consistent flow of content and stuff to talk about, which I think is really good. I've also had a little bit more general MMO content out on the Wednesdays, which I think has been really good to kind of just talk to a broader audience. I do hope to involve Final Fantasy some more in those videos, specifically once I know a bit more about what happens later on. Here, this is a prime example of me not realizing that we were clicking on something to teleport. I started trying to heal the tank, and everyone ported out, and then I realized I was dying, and I realized too late that everyone disappeared. So it was kind of unfortunate that way, but my own fault really for not knowing where to go. I just all of a sudden was like, oh, well, I'm dead. There was luckily a shortcut that would take me back, and I think one of our other players did die as well. Not surprising since, one of the healers was missing. Though I must say, and I wasn't a great player in this dungeon. I'm going to come clean right now. There's going to be a period of time that I'm lost, and we'll talk a bit about it. But the other healer in this party really had to do some carrying from time to time. And if you are watching this video, if you do happen to watch this video, I'm grateful for all the help you did. But yeah, so one thing that is consistent is we do have a lot more cutscenes. These ones I'd say they make more sense for when they happen, whereas the last dungeon, they kind of came out of nowhere. I don't know if this is just because I was in the right place at the right time, or I was just prepared for more cutscenes when I got used to the ones in the last dungeon. But the cutscenes are definitely part of the reason this takes so long to do, and the aftermath of this dungeon too. There's like, I don't know, I want to say like 15 minutes of like solid cutscenes I just sat and watched, because I believe this is the conclusion to the Realm Reborn initial story. I might be wrong about that, but I saw a lot of cutscenes and I saw a credit reel, which is fairly common when you get to the end of a chapter. So I do believe this is the kind of concluding piece of content for that story, and then I'll have the sort of bridge between the Realm Reborn and the first expansion that'll happen. And I guess my question to you guys is, would you rather me wait and complete the bridge content, or would you rather me do a summary on the Realm Reborn content and sort of discuss what happened? Would you rather me do that first, or wait until I'm done that in-between content? I'm kind of fine with doing both. I'm kind of leaning towards doing a summary for what's happened so far, because there is a lot that's happened so far, and I think it'll be nice to have a little packet of information, and then if the bridge content is interesting enough, we could do another one as well. So I think that might be the best way to do it, but I'm open to suggestions. So we're getting more information here about Cid and his sort of past and his father and how he relates to the evil guys, which is, it's been an ongoing story, and Cid's, I think, my favorite character so far in the Realm Reborn story, because he has an interesting story, and it flips back and forth between what we know about him and little things that we don't know about him, and there's certainly a bit of engagement between him and the rest of the bosses and people in this dungeon. So I've enjoyed that a fair bit. I think it's made a lot of sense that he's kind of become the main protagonist that's leading us on through here. I think that was a really good decision, and he's really come into his role as kind of one of the main characters in the last 20 levels, which has been really nice as well. What's interesting is that throughout that conversation they're trying to convince us to join the dark side or the evil side. It's interesting that bad guys always try to convince good guys to join them for their cause, but good guys are rarely like, hey, you can join us, you can be good, imagine how good we could all be together. It's a very cliche thing in a lot of stories where there's that moment where the villain is talking to the main protagonist and they're like, hey, you could join me, no hard feelings. It's so weird, and I think it has to do with the appeal to power, right? Obviously, the evil person kind of sees that they are strong, that they're quite powerful, and having that amount of power on their side would be a big asset. So I think that's nice, whereas the good people, obviously in the real world, we don't often forgive criminal offenses. Like, if we saw someone who went and pulled off a major crime, the police aren't going to be like, hey, you're very capable of doing things, obviously, do you want to join the police force and help stop other criminals? It's not something that happens as much. So it's a little bit interesting. So here we're learning that Cid is going to stop in the command center, and he's going to kind of communicate with us throughout a headpiece or whatever, so we can listen to him as we are going, and he gives little pieces of advice and little tidbits of interaction with the other bosses, but I think it's a smart plan to have him stay up here and kind of guide our way through it. This is a huge building, which I think is really nice too. I think that kind of plays to the idea of it being more of a raid feeling thing than a dungeon, specifically elevators. I've really enjoyed this glitchiness of them coming down. It was a true highlight for me, the little jump up and down. But elevators really make things feel grand, especially ones that you ride instead of having just a cutscene. I think we can all remember certain raids that have had an elevator boss that have been quite important in our day-to-day, so it's nice. We are once again kind of going pretty quick through here, it's just I kind of wish we take things slow, but I also appreciate that people have probably done this 1,000 times and they're like, oh my god, this is such a long dungeon, let's just run. And it's nice enough that the game forces people to wait for cutscenes, so I kind of get this, and You know, as a healer, it's kind of nice because you do just run up and then you kind of burst your heals for a bit and then you run for a while. Like there's a lot of downtime as a healer, and you just have to be really ready to go for burst damage from time to time. In terms of creatures, we have a fair bit of mechanical and actual guards that are pretty cool. I definitely like really enjoy the armor style of the evil forces. Like you have the bosses, they have very distinct, very big looking armor, right? Like it's very menacing, which I think is pretty fun for sure. Now we're about to see a mistake that I make. I don't click this key, as you can see here. I just watch everyone click it and then I walk away. And I've done this because up to this point, in almost every dungeon when there's a key to unlock a door or something, if one person collects it, it seems like everyone's able to use it. This is where it stops. Once again, we can watch some fun glitchiness of people going up the elevator here. But what we did is we were getting access to use the armor here, right? And I'm like, not authorized. I'm not authorized. I'm like, what's going on? I see that everyone is watching a cutscene, and I'm panicking. I'm like, oh no, is it like a pre-quest I didn't do? Is there some sort of thing I was supposed to bring into the dungeon? Because at this point I didn't realize that I should have clicked that last pass. And this is where the big separation between me and the rest of the group is going to happen. Don't worry, I do get connected with people, though I might miss some of the combat that happens in these beautiful little pieces of armor. So I have realized now I've made a mistake, and I'm like, are these guys going to be able to like wait for me after their cutscene? I should wait here and sort of mention to them that I'm lost. But as it turns out, once they're done their cutscene, they actually get teleported away from here, which is not good either. So that's where I really start panicking. I'm like, oh no, I've really messed this up. You know, it wasn't looking good at all for a while. So we can see that I'm going back down to get the passcode because I've kind of put some of this together. I see that there's an identification key reader. I'm like, okay, let's go grab the code. I can also see experience flying in from them, so I obviously know that they've gotten into combat probably, and that I'm just missing it. So I go back up the lift with the code. You know, it's unfortunate that I didn't put it together. It's nice that you don't glitch when you're on the elevator. It's only the people around you that happen to glitch, which isn't so bad. But yeah, kind of interesting. So now steps behind everyone, I'm gonna go watch the beautiful cutscene, which is nice. I like how much this armor, like obviously we've done some interaction with this before. It's what we saw Sid using in the last dungeon. I like the camera shots they do as well. It works really well. They're really nice pieces of machinery that look like pretty cool. Like they look like really cool mounts, and I'm not sure, I might have seen someone comment about this in the past video, and I apologize for asking again, but are you able to get these as a mount at some point? I do like my chocobo, but this is kind of like, you know, chocobo extreme, the mechanical extreme chocobo. So if you are able to get this as a mount, I would not mind it. It looks pretty cool. So I was really hoping I would like end up with people, but I feel like they already cleared out all of this area, and I saw a shortcut thing and I was like, okay, let's use this, but I can't use it while mounted. So I was like, well, dang, I gotta get off my mount, and I used the shortcut, and guess what? Guess where it brings me to? It brings me right back to where I got my mount. I was super frustrated at this point. It's probably pretty good you guys can't hear the actual thoughts that were going through my head. I've calmed down since then. But what's happening now is I believe that the group has started triggering cutscenes from where they are. And I get to see this bird, machinery bird, take down this door. And I remember walking past this door. So once I've seen this, I'm like, okay, I kind of understand where this was going. So they're going to use the machines to blast through this door, using the same kind of one big blast that destroys the machine at the same time that Sid used in the past dungeon, which makes a lot of sense. It's weird that there's a like ultimate shot that just takes up all of the power, but it's what it is. I mean, it kind of makes sense, like a final attack. Like it's a pretty sensible thing, but you know, we should just save these. Like if all 10 people are all 8 people, sorry, I got confused for a second, use that final attack, you know, on the main boss, I'd like to see him blow up real quick. I think that would be a maybe better use, but there you go. Also, in terms of the actual story, with there being 8 of us, only one of us would have had to use the, you know, the mount to break through the door, and then the rest of us would still have one. But those are small things. I think they've done a much better job of accounting for everyone in this. I think one of the weird parts is that the final bosses, and we'll get to that in a second, they still just talk primarily to my character. So it's kind of assumed that these other people with me are just kind of helping, but they're not really, like, you know, as important as me. So it's kind of fun. So we see a cutscene here where obviously my group has approached a boss, but I'm not with them, but I'm in the cutscene with them. So it's an overall confusing time. I'm almost caught up to where they are. And one of the mechanics that I love the most in this game is when a boss room gets sealed off, the game gives you the option to just teleport right to the boss room, which is a huge help for me and for anyone else, I'm sure, that has gotten lost. But yeah, so here we have Nero, who is, you know, starting to engage with Cid. So this is kind of some of the backstory that we get between them, which is really cool. Obviously, they're people, they've known each other for quite some time, and you know, they're both kind of coming to terms with who and what they are doing right now in the world, right? It's kind of like a long lost, I don't know if it's a friendship or, you know, what it is, but, you know, someone I've known from a long time ago, and we're like, oh, hey, this is what you're up to now? Oh, I thought you would be doing this. Yeah, so pretty cool. I really, really enjoy the helmet and the armor that this boss has. I think it would be really cool to have like a plate wearer, you know, maybe a warrior or something like that, or a tank of some sort wearing that kind of armor. I think it would look really nice. The red colors, it's kind of got like a bone look to it, but it definitely looks like it's made out of metal at the same time. So it's a really nice mix of kind of natural, but also created and like made of metal and very mechanical, which is a pretty good, you know, description of what these guys do in general. A lot of their big weapons, a lot of their big robots, they look like creatures, but they're made out of machines. So it's a very well tied in piece of armor, I think. So we see him just done with the conversation with Cid at this point. There was a bit of back and forth for a while, and he's now like, all right, time to finish you guys off. I've really enjoyed having my monocle for all of these cutscenes. I think it really adds to the seriousness of my character and the seriousness of the situation. There's definitely a mix of people who are wearing like funny costumes and people who are wearing like legit costumes in this game. And I think it really adds to the cutscenes, seeing the mix of people standing right beside each other. So we see him pull down this awesome looking weapon. Really, really cool hammer. Would love to have it on a character as well. Hopefully it's a piece of armor that you can get, because that looks super cool. Though I don't know if people can use, I think I've asked this like a really long time ago, if people can use like other two-handed weapons instead of just axes. A lot of games tend to do it where you can even use different skins for the axe and just have the same attacks. Oh, right. So coming out of the cutscene, I realized I wasn't there, which kind of sucked. So I'm like, I'm going to have to run to you guys. Not great. The maps, I'm sorry, but the maps in Final Fantasy XIV are really confusing. The way they separate based on level that you're in, and like you have to like click out of them all the time, and I still haven't gotten used to them very much, and I've been using them for quite a while now. Originally, I figured it was an issue with just not having played for long enough, but it's pretty confusing to use the maps. Even the mini map's not bad, but definitely the world map is one of the more confusing world maps I've had to deal with. I think that they could do a little bit of an overhaul, and maybe it is just me getting used to it, but it's pretty confusing. So we do get teleported into the action, which is great. I think, and it makes so much sense compared to a lot of games where you're trapped outside. But the main thing they're trying to prevent in these is that you can't just bring in things midway through the fight. So if you're able to just teleport in at the start, it fixes everything. So there was obviously a lot of mechanics going on in this fight. We didn't have to pay attention to it too much, but there was definitely these ads that would target onto someone. I believe the whole point was to try and avoid the ad if you did get targeted and sort of kite it around. I got chosen quite a few times actually. And there was definitely a fair bit of damage because people would be consistently knocked off into the bad zone where they would get damaged around the sides. So there was a fair bit of damage coming out. And overall, actually, a lot of the fights did put a fair bit of pressure, especially some of the last ones that we'll get into, a lot of pressure on the healers. So I think it was a good step up in difficulty compared to some of the other ones I've done. Still nothing crazy, but I mean, we're just leveling and doing dungeons there. I really, really, really like the weapon, I think it's the other healer who has the cards going around. And I don't know why I'm forgetting the name of that healer. It's like Astrologian? I don't know why I'm blanking on this, but I really enjoy the style of their heals, and I definitely think I would be interested in checking that out eventually. So we're having a bit of a moment here where we kill it and we hear the spooky music that happens when the masked figure who's been kind of like dealing and like bothering us this entire time, when he shows up, we hear that music as well. So I think we have like kind of a stall out where we are like, are they here? But then Sid chirps in and he's like, all right, cool, you guys killed them, let's move on. So Sid's explaining that we're gonna have to go deeper because he believes that there was a power up deeper down underground and that we might lose contact with him when we do go down. It also took me up to this point throughout the game to actually realize that it's not the ultimate weapon, it's the Ultima weapon. So I've probably read that like 50 times and just, you know, where your brain switches a word with another one, and I just kept on reading ultimate. I don't know what to tell you about it, but I thought I should share that revelation with everyone, that I've come to terms with it and I have adjusted. So what's pretty weird is that at this point the dungeon has switched to voiceover for the cutscenes, and it's one of those things where it's like, why would you do it halfway through? Like, it's really nice of the voiceover, and there is a lot of cutscenes and story moments coming up, but it's like, if you had the ability to do some of the voiceover before, why is it just kicking in now? And is it, you know, actually just supposed to be like this, or is there like something weird with my game where it wasn't voiceovering like for a long part of this? Like, it's weird. What I do love that's about to happen is we're about to fight on an elevator, which is super cool. And it's also a really, really long elevator because it's been going this whole time, and this guy, this beautiful guy, he's going to talk to us while we're going down. Yeah, so it's Gaius. We saw him earlier in the control room. I didn't talk about it. But yeah, he's got a cool voice. This is why there should be voiceovers. Like, he's got such a cool voice. He's also got a really cool weapon. Once again, really cool armor that's very mechanical, but also kind of looks like bone. I think thematically, the bad guys did a really good job of getting together and saying, what's our theme? How are we going to dress? Let's dress to impress. They did a really, really good job that way of looking very unique. But yeah, so you can see here, they're kind of like just talking towards us when there is people all around. I don't know if it's just because the camera work that they're zoomed in on me, and that's why I think that, but I feel like he's talking directly to me for a lot of things. So he gave us a really big speech about how we're not very smart, how the gods aren't going to save us, how they respond to, you know, crystals and ether, which he gives them, and like, you know, he's really trying to get under our skin and tell us that he's better than us. A very typical bad guy thing as well, because he's kind of written us off, where he tried to invite us as his friend. He's like, oh, well, you're not my friend. You're terrible. So we're kind of at that moment now and definitely gearing up for a fight. I like that the cutscenes in this game have the very, very similar steps, each of them. It starts off kind of slow, there's some back and forward. About halfway through, the weapon will come into play, you'll see it drawn, and then there will be a very specific kind of like combat stance that the boss will do, and it'll like camera will fade out and see us kind of gearing up to fight him, and then we'll go into the combat. It's a very typical cutscene, which I think is nice. I really like his mask. Like, is it like a gas mask kind of thing that gives him that echoey sound? It's really, really, it looks like it would be heavy. Like, he probably has the worst neck pains in the world, but definitely really nice. I also like how there's draw animations for each of us when we're about to get into combat as well. It's really cool because it shows you a lot of class identity as well, where you get to see the specific weapon that you're wearing or using, which obviously weapons have such a big impact on classes or jobs rather in this game. So it's really nice that way. All right, so we get into the fight. We are going down the elevator. Like I say, we've been going down the elevator for like 5 minutes now, so we are going deep underground. It's a pretty typical fight, but it really is nice doing a fight on an elevator. I think that's such a badass fight room scenario where you're kind of trapped going down with someone. I think it's really cool. I tried to slip in a fair bit of damage, which I think I've done a pretty good job in most of the boss fights. I've also been pretty good at keeping my MP topped up while I fight. I'm probably doing something weird with my combat as well at different times, but I feel like there's a few things that I'm doing well at least. With some AoE coming out too, it's not bad. I feel like the other healer though, like I mentioned earlier, is doing a lot of the carrying of this group, which is fine with me. But I like to give myself some credit where I can. All right, so another very typical thing, cliche thing in a lot of these final battles is that you fight against the enemy, the main bad guy, multiple times. So this is us beating him once in combat, and you're probably like, okay, maybe you fight him one more time. But no, there's going to be 2 more times that we fight this guy, which is, I think, a little bit excessive when it comes to combat. We also just saw him go through this door, and now there's a cutscene of us going through this door, which is a little funny as well. But it is for the big reveal of the Ultima weapon, which we did kind of see, I think, earlier, absorbing the Primal's energy. I believe that was this creature that looks like kind of a dragon robot, and I like the one big eye. All right, I guess it is too big. It shows the robot face from like one side a lot, and it looks kind of derpy because he's got one really big glowing eye, and then you can't see the other one. So it looks like he's like just sort of giving you like a wink or something like that. Like I don't know, he looks pretty weird. Like right there, this is the image I'm talking about. It looks really funny because you can only see the one big red eye. Of course, there I am squinting at him with my monocle, so I don't know if I'm any more professional. But yeah, I don't know. It's weird that you would build a robot and make it look like a living creature and then control it from the head. Like I guess it makes sense that you would do that, but like also the head is kind of like exposed compared to a lot of like the more guarded chest area. I don't know. I don't know if it would be harder to fight like from the head point of view. They did a good job with the tail of the robot too. Yeah, so we're gonna fight the ultimate weapon. Look at those eyes. We're also on an elevator going up now, so we've come all this way down just to go up in another elevator fighting this creature. A little bit confusing, but good use of space, I guess. All right, so it's round 2 against this guy. He's got his new power-up suit, which is pretty cool. There's some really nice telegraphed mechanics that I like a lot. And what's, I think, really nice at this point in the game is that if you do happen to stand in the telegraphs, you're going to get hurt pretty bad, which I think is fair, right? Because you've got all that time to dodge. So we're now at a point where, you better know to get out of these weird things. The one difficult part about this one is that the telegraph is green, and you're like, is that good or bad? But then you see the blast afterwards, and it's pretty easy to learn that it's bad, but there was a question where I was like, is this a good thing? Nope. And he's got a fair bit of AoE damage that he does, if I remember correctly. Nothing compared to the third phase that we're going to get to eventually here, but there's a lot of pushing people around and just damage in general. The other thing he has is a fair bit of armor. This fight, I think, lasts the longest of all the fights that we do, which makes sense because he's more focused on a defensive armor structure, I think, right now. I don't know. I'm reading into this way too much. But we see there's a fair bit of AoE damage going out, which is nice. I get to use a fair bit of my AoE healing with my fairy, as well as just some group heals. Between myself and the other healer, this fight felt pretty comfortable, I think. I was kind of conservative in holding my MP for like a just crazy moment at the end, but it didn't seem to come. The other part of this, as this is kind of my first time through, I'm always wondering if this is the last fight or not. You do get the thing on the side that kind of tells you, but sometimes it's just like a room that you go into and it checks it off, who knows. There was a telegraph that just went by a little ago where you kind of avoid the outside and then you stack on the inside, and then there's a telegraph in the inside right after. I really, really enjoy that. That makes me feel like a lot of other games that I've played that do that, kind of like you stand here, you stand there. It's really nice because for a brief second, you have to almost completely focus on that. Specifically catching, when it caught me off guard here and I wasn't ready for it, I was like, oh, okay, we got to really focus on where we're standing because this guy's going to hurt us. So I thought that was really good. Throughout the entire fight, I was able to put out a fair bit of DPS and focused on spot healing a few people too, but ultimately not too bad. And kind of like disappointing that it wasn't that hard to beat the Ultima weapon. We talked about it for so long, and just this group of 8 people didn't have that much of a difficulty with it. What I'd be really interested in knowing, and I know this isn't on like a super hard mode or anything like that, is how difficult this was for the first people who did it. Okay, so here we go. We got spooky guy, Lahabrea, there you go. And he is here. He is showing his beautiful blonde face, not hooded, not got his weird red marking. He's ready to talk to us. And we're gonna, kind of bring it out onto the table that I'm getting my power from a magic space crystal, which is fair that they know where I'm getting all this power from. Lahabrea is an interesting character. Like, he obviously knows a lot more of the big picture compared to Gaius. And Gaius and him kind of seem like on friendly terms, but also kind of not. We get a few instances here where Gaius is like, we're going to talk about this later. We're going to talk about this later. I mean, I don't think they get to talk about it later, but there's definitely tension between their side with this, whereas Lahabrea knows how to power up the Ultima weapon and make it really powerful, whereas this guy was just using it at like a small amount of power, which is pretty funny because he seemed so confident with himself, but there you go. So he's now telling us that he was after the Primal's life force to empower the core of this Ultima weapon. And that was kind of the whole plan all along, was to power this up, which we saw, obviously, it absorbed the power in that cutscene a little while ago. So we do know it has the power, he just hasn't activated it. So it's kind of that moment where like, oh, we didn't face the full force of this thing yet. Which gets us into the point where we're like, okay, we're gonna have to do a third fight as well. All right, so he unleashes the ultimate power, which is just a tremendous amount of power. Like, it blows up ships. The amount of bad people he killed in that move was crazy. He did also end up, or tried to kill us, but we were saved by, once again, our wonderful savior Crystal in the Sky, who put a shield around us and our friends, who were like, oh no, we're not dead. What I do like about this, though, as it's transformed the entire playable field to this really, really cool, like, kind of fire ring with lava everywhere. Gaius is pretty upset that we blew up his, ship. So he's saying that that attack that Heidelin, our crystal friend, blocked for us, absorbed a lot of power from her. So this is kind of like, we're weak now. He's like, you can finish this. He's not going to help us, though. Like, this is cliche bad guy number 3 or 4, I don't know, where they could just team up and fight us together, but they're going to do it one by one, just cuz, which is a little bit interesting. All right, into the fight we are. This fight, it was crazy. This is the fight where I was caught off guard with how much was going on, and it very quickly ramps up, as you'll see. So, yes, there's rockets that come out and do some light AoE damage. The tank takes a fair bit of damage. We have these green lasers again, but we also have ads that are putting out these blue lasers. And I think, if I was to do this fight again, if I was to give some instruction, I think we needed to kill the ads quicker than we did, because there just became so many blue lasers that you had to try and avoid. There's like big pieces of debris that fall down and you have to heal through that. So there is just a ton going on. So right now I'm like just moving as quick as I can, trying to heal things. The tank dies, at which point I know that I have a sort of revive skill that I want to push, but I've actually never used it up to this point, just because I haven't really gotten to a situation where I've gotten to, and I'm panicking and I'm trying to find it. Luckily, the other healer was quick on that and did get the heal out, but there is just damage coming from everywhere at this point. It was quite the challenge. I really enjoyed the colors, though, because you have the sort of red on the outside and you have the blue telegraphs in the center. So they did a really good job of making it fairly easy to see what's happening, which I think was really good. But it is a tough thing, and I think it would be really hard even as a DPS to kind of just weave through all the different telegraphs. But we end up killing this guy for the third and final time. The ultimate weapon definitely was a lot harder once it was powered up, but we see him get blasted out of the head and gets like burnt slightly. Not good for him. We have this super cool fiery background look. I love it. So the ultimate weapon blows up. Gaius is dead. He gave us his little like last speech about, how we could rule or whatever. It blows up. Looks like it would have hurt us a fair bit. Pretty cool screen though. I like it a lot. And we're chill. And guess who shows up again? Oh no, it's Spooky Ghost. He's here. He's like, you failed me again, friend. Look at him. Look at his disappointment. Yeah, there we go. Pathetic. Oh, he just said ultimate weapon. You know what? Maybe I have been reading ultimate weapon. I don't know. Ultimate weapon, it's one of those. I apologize if I've corrected myself incorrectly. But yeah, so he's disappointed. He's coming down. He's like, hey, my turn to show you what I got. So he is really against Heidelin. He believes Heidelin is the root of the corruption, and his goal is to destroy that corruption. That is his main goal. So he is truly against Heidelin, whereas I'd say Gaius was more about seizing control of the entire world. And obviously we were trying to stop that, but this guy has a bigger picture in mind. Yeah, so now he's decided to kill us because we've been interfering. He puts on his cool red spooky face and he is fully glowy purple. It's like, okay, this is damage time. We do our cool draw animation, staggered this time, which is really cool. and we're going to gear up for a fight with him. The fight with him, though, was actually a lot easier than the Ultima weapon, round 3. And I don't know if I was just expecting Lahabrea to be a lot harder in the end, because we've seen him for so long. Like, we've seen Lahabrea, like, I want to say around level 20. Like, he's been in the game for quite some time. Whereas this discussion of the ultimate weapon, that's been, the last 20 levels, maybe the last 10 levels. There's definitely some telegraphs that if you stand in, you're going to get damaged. We see our other healer just take it, because I think he knew he could just heal through it, but that's his choice. But yeah, he's a lot squishier. Like, we damage through this guy super, super quick. So as a final cutscene, we go into space and we see Hydaelyn, who is the crystal, and we have Lahabrea up here as well. So there's kind of a final spiritual confrontation, I guess, after we've had our physical confrontation. But we're clearly in a place of power here, where we're kind of like raised above, we're glowing, we're in control, and we make use of a blade of light with these crystals that we've been, a lot of different parts of the game are coming together now from the story. And we do sort of create a glowing weapon. I assume, if you were a different job, it would be like a sword or whatever you use. But we have our scholar book that we use to kind of deal a final blow. Quite a powerful blow, like just pierced with light. So a really cool, like, imagery here. And we see him kind of separate into 2 different sides, like he's kind of been pulled apart. We've got some triumphant music going on. We have Hydaelyn here. We look super badass, like, with our team here. Like, I really like this. We've got kind of all the scions or whatever that are gonna do the final death blow together. So the game, for all my complaints in the last dungeon, where I complained we didn't get to see our party members, we didn't get to see the other story people that have been helping us, it all comes together in this final section where we do strike a lot of the final blows together and do a lot of the damage together, which is great as well. And now he's just floating. We see that his sort of evil crystal breaks, which I think signifies the ending of his corruption, in fact, where he was trying to end our corruption. I'm not sure if he's actually full on dead, or if there's suggestion that he's done, but there we go. Wow, so there we go. That was a really long one, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Thank you for watching.